to be your moderator this afternoon. Okay, so being your moderator, allow me to set some guidelines. We kindly request everyone to please keep your accounts muted throughout the lecture. And for your questions, feel free to type those in using the chat box of the Zoom application. We will be using the chat box for all the questions. And after the presentation, I shall read your questions one by one if time permits and discuss it with our speaker. Okay, so our webinar in the 7th installment in celebration of the AFOAM 20th anniversary is entitled Recent Advances in Brachytherapy and Challenges. Before we get to the lecture proper, allow me please to highlight the importance of talking about this topic at this time. Brachytherapy, as we all know, is utilizing radioactive materials placed inside the body of the patient to precisely and accurately deliver radiation dose. This treatment procedure is also considered to be minimally invasive. Therefore, we can expect that brachytherapy patients would recover would simply require shorter duration to recover compared to other options. That would mean that these cancer patients undergoing this treatment can easily or conveniently get back to their routine with minimal disruption. The development and the implementation of brachytherapy through time has helped countless of lives, and it became a standard tool in the multidisciplinary approach of cancer treatment. Specifically, this afternoon, our aim is to tackle the tangible improvements and challenges of this treatment procedure. Without further ado, allow me to introduce our distinguished speaker in this event. He is the department head and professor of the Radiation Oncology Department of the All India Institute of Medical Sciences in New Delhi, India. He has established excellence in brachytherapy in his institution through interstitial brachytherapy, intraoperative brachytherapy, and extracorporeal RT. He also did fellowship trainings at the Ohio State University, St. Louis University, MD Anderson Cancer Center, and University of Kentucky. He was a recipient of the AIIMS Research Excellence Award in 2014 under the clinical category. And definitely, our speaker today was also invited as speakers in various national and international conferences. He was invited as faculty and speaker at American Brachytherapy Society annual meeting both in 2015 and 2019. He was invited as a visiting professor as well at Rutgers Cancer Institute of New Jersey. His areas of interest are gynecologic, breast, bone, STS, and brachytherapy, and he has published more or less 220 articles. It's my pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce our distinguished speaker, Dr. D.N. Sharma.
Okay, Dr. Dharma, can I start now then?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Dr. Sharma. You may talk now.
Okay, fine. Okay, so I'll just slide now. Can you see the slide, Dr. Delmar?
Yeah. Just
Yes.
PPT, it's okay.
Okay, I'll just no, it's not moving, but okay. It's not moving. Yeah, it's moved now. Yeah, that's okay. Okay. Okay, so thank you, Dr. Delmar, and thank you, AFM for choosing me as a speaker. It's always a pleasure to be in such a platform, the platform which gives the opportunity for both the subjects, medical physics and the clinical side, to be together. And I always feel that medical physics and the clinical side, they are inseparable. They both grow together. And therefore, it is very, it's a proud moment for me to be on this platform. And thank you once again, and of Delmar, Arun Chawla in particular, for posing faith in me and having confidence in me that I can do the justice for this topic. So today I will talk about the recent advances in brachytherapy and the challenges. And before I proceed from a talk proper, these are my disclosures. I'm a very strong user of brachytherapy, not because that I do it or I don't do it, because of the and philosophy of brachytherapy. And that doesn't mean that I'm against SBRT or IMRT. I still do IMRT, SBRT, but I use IMRT, SBRT very judiciously. Whenever there's an indication, I go for it. But when it comes to brachytherapy, I'm a very liberal user of brachytherapy. Even if there is a smallest indication of brachytherapy, there is a borderline indication of brachytherapy, I usually go for it. To begin with, how do we define brachytherapy? Brachy is defined as the treatment of cancer by inserting radioactive sources into or near to the tumor. This is usually done in two phases now. In the first phase, we insert some hollow catheters or tubes into the patient's body having the tumor. And then the next phase, we connect the tubes and the catheters to the remote uploading brachytherapy unit and deliver the treatment. So this is usually done in two phases now. Of course, in field brachytherapy, just one go that we deliver the entire treatment. And the brachytherapy is actually a surgical aspect of brachytherapy. So therefore, a brachytherapy has to behave like a surgeon at times, like very meticulous in choosing patients, very meticulous in performing the procedure, and very meticulous in following the results and the clinical aspect. So in a way, it is a surgical portion of the radiation treatment. This is how the brachytherapy evolved over a period of time. It was literally a radium era before 1960s. Just after the radium probably was started as early as 1901 when the intracavitary brachytherapy was started. There were a couple of advances, but they were primarily revolving around the radium-based treatment. Although now the radium has been abandoned for brachytherapy, but let us not forget the major developments in brachytherapy took place because of the radium. It's almost like 6 to 7 years that the radium was predominantly practiced as a isotope for brachytherapy. So therefore, a couple of advancements took place in that era. So let's not forget the radium era. After the 60s, we had the uploading era, which means we had the manual and remote uploading machines, and the treatment dispensation became very easy. And in 85s, we had a great progress in the remote uploading technology. Then came the era of optimization in 1990s onwards because of the SBR source technology, due to dwell times and dwell positions and the optimization tools. The brachytherapy had a very great advantage in shaping up the dosimetry and therefore giving the clinical results as well. After the 90s, then we had the era of the imaging, and we are currently in that era. Imaging is frequently used nowadays, not only for planning, it's being used for assisting the brachy implant, for verifying the implant, and for planning the implant, even for the follow-up of the brachytherapy treatment. So therefore, imaging is very frequently used, although CT scan is primarily the dominant modality which is being used for the various purposes. But there are other modalities which are being used for assisting the implant and for dosing as well. In 2005, we had in-house planning system, but unfortunately, it didn't pick up that well. There are not many studies favoring the intensely modulated brachytherapy in-house planning. But yes, there is an option, and we can further define the dosimetry with the help of the ISRA and this kind of software. Now, the era is constantly evolving with the multiple imaging modalities, due to planning systems, and due to the better understanding of the biology. I think brachytherapy is still evolving, and it is becoming better and better. These are some of the general facts about the brachytherapy. As you can see in this picture, these are my two patients where I performed the brachy procedure. First is the breast implant, and the next is a lung implant, a patient who had a lung metastasis. So the first patient was a ATBI patient, and as you can see, the dosimetry is very precise. It is very well covering the tumor volume. And at the same time, the adjoining breast, the rest of the breast is not getting any dose. It is getting very negligible dose, and the underlying heart, lung, and the remaining other, the opposite breast, they get very negligible dose. So this is because brachytherapy, the dose follow is very, very sharp, and the dose intensity is very high into the treatment area. So that's the beauty of the brachytherapy. Similarly, if you see the right-hand side picture, a patient of the lung metastasis, where patient was referred to us for SBRT, but since it was close to the rib, so SBRT was not done, and we chose to put a needle into the lung metastasis. And you can see the dosimetry perfect red line, which is the prescription line, and it is covering the lesion very well. The beauty is that as the patient moves and the chest moves with the breathing, there are a lot of breathing artifacts in the excellent treatment, and for that we need either a tracking or gating. But in brachytherapy, you don't need any great gating tracking. The lung moves, the lesion moves, the needle moves, and the dosage moves. So it is a kind of 4D treatment, and you don't need any extra gating or any extra tracking for that. So brachytherapy has inbuilt gating and tracking into this, and it is a 4D treatment. Another feature of brachytherapy is that you don't need a PT margin. It is so accurate and precise that you don't need any PT. It is the same PT which is PT for us. Unlike in IMRT and other excellent treatments where you definitely need to give a margin around the CTV in order to counter the uncertainties because of the motion and the positioning as well. Nowadays, with the SDR stepping source technology, you can shape the dosimetry in whatever way you want to desire. You can have like in this picture, you can see you can have a linear distribution of the dose. You can have a dumbbell effect of the dosimetry. You can have oblong or any kind of distribution you want. You can set up the dosage because of the SDR stepping source technology. And you can see each dwell point actually works like IMRT beamlet. So it is, in a way, it is like IMRT. As you can see in the picture, you have multiple dwell points, and each dwell point can be controlled by the timings and other features. So therefore, with these features, the brachytherapy has become very, very refined in terms of the dosimetry. Another picture which I did a liver metastasis implant, and in this you can see that because of rib, I could not put the needles parallel to each other. As per the Paris system, we need to put the brachytherapy parallel to each other. I could not put them parallel, and I could not cover the lesion the way I desired because the rib which was coming in front of the needle. So, but with the PPS helped me. Because of the PPS optimization tools, I could still cover the lesion very well, as you can see in this picture. At the same time, the central part of the tumor got a very, very high dose, which is welcome because the central portion is usually hypoxic, necrotic, and usually radio resistant, and you need a higher dose there than the rest of the tumor. So the brachytherapy dosimetry suits the biology of these tumors as well, and so therefore I always say the brachytherapy is not only geometrically conformal, it is biologically conformal as well, and the dose inside the tumor is always higher than the prescription dose, which is the first kind of thing, and therefore you don't need to escalate the dose beside the brachy treatment, and therefore it has an auto escalation modality. It has SIB-IMRT into this, so you don't need to do anything else to boost the tumor. The high dose inside the tumor incites the immunological response, which nowadays we see a phenomenon in the SBRT. This was there in brachy right from the beginning, but the SBRT lobby is realizing this phenomenon now because the high dose incites the endothelial apoptosis and the tumor cell kill. Therefore, if I just summarize this brachy features into one slide, that brachytherapy is a proven science. It is an established modality for decades, and we have vast experience. It's not new like SBRT or IMRT. It's there for last so many decades. As far as dosage is concerned, as I told you, it is ultra conformal. It has inbuilt IMRT, it has inbuilt SBRT, SIB-IMRT, it has inbuilt gating, tracking, everything into it. So it's a comprehensive dosimetric modality. It is, as I said, it is not only geometric, it is biologically conformal, and it has a high therapeutic ratio, which means the tumor gets the highest dose and the normal tissues or normal, the OAR gets a minimal dose, which is the principle of the treatment. The treatment is very short. It's a naturally hyperfrequented modality. So the treatment usually lasts less than a week, unlike 6 to 7 weeks in the actual treatment. So the treatment is very short. It suits to conditions like conditions where you have a lot of resource-friendly modality. And it's very costly. You need a small, simple machine, not very costly. You need just one room and also theater to execute the treatment. Therefore, because it is friendly nature, it suits the economy and the country very good economy. One small downside is people usually say that it is invasive, as it's complicated and dependent, it requires skills. Well, in my opinion, that's a very negligible downside. It is nearly invasive, and the skill required is not that great. It's simple to practice. If somebody is having the mindset to practice it, it's not that difficult to practice. When it comes to the we try to compare because a lot of colleagues think that intensive brachy in pelvis is very traumatic and replaced by the SBRT or IMRT, which is good. So we did a study to try to answer each and every question in a very scientific manner. So what we did that we retired the hands of the patients who were treated by the intensive brachytherapy, which I will new pitch, and we kept this CT the same, and we just imported it onto the Eclipse system, and we created a parallel plan with the same CTV. In fact, we gave a PT margin as well because we did a PT for IMRT. And it took like 7 to 9 beams in order to cover the lesion. And then we compared the dosimeter of the intensive brachy versus the IMRT. And these are the results. The dose coverage was better with intensive brachytherapy. The bladder dose was significantly less, as you can see, purely significant. The rectum dose was also less with brachytherapy. The urethral dose was also less with brachytherapy. So therefore, when we talk about conformability, nothing is more conformal than the brachytherapy. Even with IMRT, that is not as conformal as brachytherapy. So we have done in this study, and this is precisely why the brachy is better, because as you can see in this picture, the dose deposition in the brachytherapy is more or less, it's very dense into the tumor bearing zone, just confined to the area where we implant. While in IMRT or SBRT, the spillage is towards the entry side and sometimes towards the exit side. So therefore you have spillage along the path of the beam, and therefore you get a spillage much more outside the PCB and the treatment zone. So therefore, because of this nature, brachytherapy is more conformal than the IMRT treatment. This paper has been only published a long time back in 2013. So if somebody wants to go in detail, one can just see the details in this publication. I need to show you another picture where brachy scores or other treatments. This was a paper published in Red Journal in 2014. The authors tried to compare the dosing of various modalities in the prostate, because prostate being the very common tumor there. So they just wanted to compare the various modalities in a bit to find the answer that what is the best or the most conformable for the prostate cancer treatment. In this, the first modality used was the VMAT. As you can see in this, the dose coverage was good, but the spillage outside the pelvis was quite big. Although it was still you have spillage outside the pelvis. The next modality compared to intensive modality proton therapy. As you can see here, the dose is much better as compared to the VMAT. As you can see here, the dose coverage of the PT is very good, but you still have the dose placed in the entry side of the two entry beams. The next modality was the instantly modulated carbon 9 therapy. As you can see here, the dose was better. As you can see, the central dose was better. It was slightly better than the therapy, but you still have entry doses on the both sides of the pelvis. So you have some space. The next modality compared was the low dose of brachytherapy in the form sheet brachytherapy. As you can see, the space outside the pelvis is almost nil, and you have a dose deposition only in the prostate and maybe the abdomen area. The rest of the areas outside the pelvis are not getting. Then they compared the high dose of brachytherapy for the same patients, and they've shown that the dose coverage was further better because of the SDR source technology. The coverage was better than even the sheet brachytherapy, and the dose to the bladder rectum was less than the sheet brachy. So they compared all the modalities, and they found that the dosimetry was the best with the SDR brachytherapy as compared to the carbon 9, as compared to the proton therapy, and as compared to sheet brachytherapy. So therefore, the current brachytherapy system which we have which is being practiced very frequently all over the world, is the best dosimetric weapon we have in the armamentarium of the radiation treatment. For the ease of discussion, I have divided the brachytherapy advances in different categories so that we can discuss it easily and we can grab it easily. The first aspect of advance or the progress is the radioisotope technology advances. Then the progress in the dispensing units like manual or afterloading and remote operating technology. Then the advancement in the, it's a very important aspect, advancement in the field of application needles and catheters, which are very, very important aspect of the brachytherapy dispensation. Then the use of imaging modalities into the brachytherapy, and therefore the various advancement in the imaging has revolutionized the brachytherapy treatment. Then the treatment planning software, of course, with the same implant, you can further refine the dosimetry. It's a good planning software. Then the advancement in the field of special brachy procedures like intraoperative brachytherapy, robotic brachytherapy, and other brachy procedures. And finally, of course, the endpoint, whatever progress and development we have, the clinical results, how the brachytherapy has improve the clinical results in the various areas. So we take the first study, the advancement in the radioisotope technology. I will not go in details, but these are some of the isotopes being used for brachytherapy. Primarily for SBR, we are using iridium and cobalt. But in field brachytherapy, we have a couple of new isotopes which are very important. The first is cesium-131. For field brachytherapy, there are two sources which are frequently used. One is palladium, and the other is the iodine-125. So these are the two field brachy sources which are used frequently for the prostate and other brain tumors and other tumors. But there are two other sources. One is cesium-131, which is a very short half-life, 9 days. That means the entire dose is delivered in a very quick time as compared to like palladium or iodine. And this is being used in prostate and brain tumors. There are a couple of articles as well, but it's a new source further improving the results in the prostate and the brain tumors. Another is radium-223 for bone met, especially for the prostate. The prostate metastasis have a affinity for this isotope, radium-223, tagged with some antibodies. So therefore, it targets only the prostate cells. And wherever there is a bone metastasis, this isotope helps in resolving the lesions. And there are some articles, in fact, hinting that it can add to the survival as well. So these are the two isotopes I just wanted to highlight. The upper image shows the prostate brachytherapy. I'm sure you all are aware of it, but it's being used for other sites like breast as well. The same way you insert the various sheets in the prostate, you can insert in the breast as well. At a single time. The beauty is that it's a single time process. You don't have to call the patient again for treatment, just like in SPR. So, and you deliver very, very high dose. In prostate, with field brachytherapy, you deliver almost like 170 to 180 gray, which we can't deliver by any other technology. Similarly, in breast also, you can deliver a very high dose, like 100 gray, which you can't deliver by any other technology. So, this is the advantage of using field that you, over a period of time, you can deliver a very high dose to a very confined area. There are a couple of more advances in the isotopes. We have a device called brachymesh, which means the radioactive sources are embedded into the mesh, which is kept on the tumor bed, usually the surgical bed. Usually there's a recurrence in the surgical bed, so that's the area of concern. And once you, during surgery, we place a brachymesh, and that delivers the dose slowly, so that if there are some remnant cells in the tumor bed, they can't grow because we have a brachy treatment going on slowly with this brachymesh. The other is a gamma clip. This is also a clip having a radioactive source into this, and these clips are applied just like surgical clips. They are applied to the resection areas where there can be some like risk of recurrence. So that takes care. I'll show you the next is how their gamma clips are. This is a patient lung tumor where the lung tumor has been removed, and just like the wedge areas which are going to be approached by the surgical sutures, there we can have some margin positive issue and margin close issue. So there can be some recurrence in these areas. So therefore, what the surgeons do, they apply these gamma clips, which you can see here, and these clips emit radiation during the course of time, and they prevent the further recurrence. As you can see, the dosimetry, the same patient having the dosimetry here. along the scar or along the closure of the resection margins, you have a dose delivered by the seed brachytherapy. The source used here is the Yatim 169, which is used for this gamma clip. So there are a couple of advancements in this area. Coming on to the dispensation technology, mostly we are shifting towards the SDR, but there are a couple of states in Europe who are still using, or they prefer to use the PDR brachytherapy. LDR of late is being discouraged, but there are some countries still using the LDR. But yes, every system has its own advantage. LDR has the best biology. SDR has the best technological advantage, geometrical advantages, like you can shape the dosimetry and it's a short treatment time. PDR is actually the combined advantage of both LDR and HDR, and supposed to be better than those, but it too has some concerns, so therefore not that popular as HDR, but yes, in certain countries, the PDR is still the most popular dosage system as compared to other two. I will just spend some time on the pulse dose because it's probably new for some people. The PDR is actually a combination of the LDR, HDR, that means combining the biology, best biology and the best geometry. So therefore, you combine the good effect of the two, getting the best of the two. There has been a couple of studies in the literature. We were lucky that we had PDR with us for about 10 years, and we did some research work in that also. We did a randomized control trial in the cervix, comparing the SDR and the PDR for intracavity brachytherapy. Although the local control and the survival is more or less the same, since the follow-up is not very great, but it has advantage in the terms that the patients were free in between, and the relatives could go in between the treatment time by like the 10 minutes pulse and the 15 minutes of the rest of the period. So the care can be given in a better way during that rest period, when the relatives can go in and the sister and the doctors can go inside the patient and can have a better vigilance on the tumor. On the patient. So therefore, it has some advantages, although but the survival and the local control more or less the same. Then the progress in the field of the applicators. Now, applicators play a very important role in the brachytherapy. If the applicator is inserted properly in the desired the tumor area, the dosimetry will be automatically better. Therefore, it is very important to choose the right applicator for the right patient and for the right tumor. There are a couple of intracavity applicators. I'm saying intracavity because that's the commonest brachy procedure followed worldwide. So therefore, a lot of progress has taken place in the intracavity brachytherapy. First one is the standard tandem and ovoids, which is simple having one standard tandem and two ovoids. But then there's a couple of other applicators. Each applicator has its own advantage and disadvantage. This is Henschke applicator. Then we have a ring applicator with a device to push the rectum downwards so that the rectal dose is minimal. Similarly, then we have ring applicator having the holes for putting needles, by which we can improve the dosimetry onto the later aspect, and therefore the dosimetry can be better than the intracavity. So a couple of other applicators. This is an intravaginal applicator for various intracavity procedure done for vagina and for endometrial carcinoma. Nowadays, instead of just one single channel, we have multiple channels around the central channel into the cylinders, and therefore you can shape up the dosage, because with single channel, the dose distribution is isotropic. Now with this, you can shape up the dosimetry. You can cut in the dose on one side, and you can have increase the dose to the side you want. So this is one of the systems which has been in the market now. This is intracavity, intravaginal, you can say a combination of both. This is for patients where you can have a space in the vagina for the ovoids, and therefore you can insert this cylinder and the tandem, which is called the uterovaginal applicator. This is handy for some patients where technically we cannot use the intracavity standard tandem or a ring applicator. For intact uterus, we have the light applicator or a butterfly applicator, where you put the applicators in both the side of the uterus, so covering the entire uterus very well. There are a couple of more applicators and templates for improving the dosimetry. This is, everybody knows that Newport applicator and the Cernap applicator. These are in fact not new, but I'm going to show a new one which is recently being launched by one of the vendors. This is called Venergy applicator. This is a comprehensive applicator having intracavity facility, having intestinal facility, having the ring applicator, and everything is in there. You can treat everything in the Palace. And it was primarily made up of the two split ring applicators, which you can separate as if you need. And then it has a plate through which you can insert the plastic brachytherapy catheters, which are not very traumatic. And you can detach that applicator if you that plate if you want. If you want to use only intracavitary, you can use that intracavitary, but you can use that interstitial also. You can use that hybrid also. Hybrid actually means combining both intracavitary and interstitial. That's called hybrid, like some of the ring applicators or the oval, carrying the holes into the oval. So this facility, this applicator has all the intracavitary modality. This is interstitial. This is hybrid. You can treat everything with this. So although we don't have much data, although there are one or two publications using this applicator, but we have to wait and see that whether this is clinically better than other applicators like Newton or Inside. This is simple breast patient being treated by the brachytherapy called balloon brachytherapy. Although this is not very new, but there are some applicators that can be refined. The problem with the balloon catheter is that it is a single channel, and again the dosimetry is not that better as you want because it is the same distance in all the directions. Now with the various channels, multiple channels around that balloon, you can shape the dosimeter in a better way, like on skin side or maybe on the sometimes on the rib side. If you want a lesser dose, then you can with the arrangement of the various channels into the cavity, you can shape the dose in a better way. These are called hybrid applicators for breast APBI. One of two like Sevi applicator or Contura. They are more or less with the principle that if you have both central channel and multiple peripheral channels, then the dosimetry can be shaped in a better way. So this is all the breast. We have a couple of applicators for like bile duct and for endoluminal or endobronchial where you find that IMRT is going to deliver a dose to the adjoining area. Then we have a prostate applicator as well. With this prostate, you can treat this applicator. You can treat the prostate, and you can see the dosimetry there and then with certain softwares where you can see the live dosimetry. Hello, Dr. Rajvi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Hello, Dr. Rajvi, can you hear me?
Yes, Dr. Sharma.
Okay,
Everything going well.
Dr. Sharma, I can hear you.
Okay, fine. I was thinking very good because I got a message from one of the viewers that the internet connection is unstable, so that's why I asked.
No, it's fine. Fine.
Okay, fine. Okay, thank you. Okay. So now, showing a couple of the other advanced catheters. Plastic catheters have greatly improved the results of brachytherapy because they're least traumatic. They can take any shape, they can mold, they can bend, and they're easy to use. For example, this is a patient upper image. You can see a patient who had a vagina at the lower end of the growth, and then I did an implant in the lower part of the vagina with these plastic catheters, which is not very traumatic. The steel needles are very traumatic, so they have the edge over the steel catheters because they are simple and they are not very traumatic. The patient does not have any discomfort due to these plastic catheters. Similarly, you have a patient of the carcinoma buccal mucosa involved in lips. This was the tumor bearing zone. It is simple. I always say brachy is not that difficult to practice. It's very simple. What you need to do is just demarcate the area to implant it. Like in this case, I just draw a line covering the entire tumor and then divide this area into the different zones as per the brachy geometry. For example, I usually separate catheters from 1 to 1.5 centimeters from each other. Therefore, you just draw a line at 1.5 centimeter interval and just insert the catheters and that's it. And then just scan and then the dosimetry. I don't know how some people make it unnecessarily that it is a very complex and skilled procedure. In my opinion, it is a simple procedure, as simple as IMRT or SBRT. There are a couple of more applicators. This is called HAM applicator used for intraoperative brachytherapy. We are lucky that we have this facility intraoperative brachytherapy. And this applicator is placed at the tumor bed during the surgery and then connected to the brachy machine. You can transfer the same brachy machine, it's a simple machine, to the operation theater, which is called intraoperative high-dose brachy theater. And then you can deliver the dose there, then in the time of surgery. something like 15 to 20 gray, you can deliver there, which is equivalent to like 30, 40 gray. And then the rest you can deliver after like 20, 30 gray, you can deliver after the surgery is over, or 2 weeks, 6 weeks down the line, which is not difficult. 30, 40 gray in the abdomen or pelvis is not that difficult, you know. So this is how you can combine the intraoperative dose with the XMM dose and can achieve a very high dose in order to improve the local control. The same application can be used for the surface mold brachy also nowadays. If you have tumor on the skin surface, you can use the same because it can take any shape. And the lower application is just the modified version of this one. This is upper one is a ham application. The lower one is like Hilbert's application. Frequently used fiber application because it is much more flexible. It is much more, you can cut to any size, and the distance is also, it suits, it's just 1 centimeter in between the two catheters, which suits us. And you can reuse also, you can sterilize it and you can reuse also. So nowadays we prefer this fibrous application. They are primarily used for intraoperative and for surface mold brachytherapy. Now let's come to the imaging advances for brachytherapy. Now, there are two components for image guided brachytherapy. One is image assisted brachytherapy and the image guided or image planned brachytherapy. Now, first I think that when the imaging is used for assisting the implant, which is I think very important. In my opinion, if you implant a brachy well, then you don't have to worry much about the dosing, because if you implant geometry is perfect, the dosimetry is obviously going to be perfect. So this is very important, which some people do not understand. It is equally important now. But various imaging models used for this brachytherapy implantation is ranging from the X-ray fluoroscopy to the PET scan. The commonest, if you ask me, commonest imaging modality used for guiding implants is ultrasound. In my opinion, that's the best one. I'll tell you why. But there's some work done in the X-ray fluoroscopy by Dr. Sudhir Nag at the Ohio State University. I was lucky to have a fellowship under him, and I learned most of brachytherapy at Ohio State University under the leadership of Dr. Sudhir Nag. That one time when there was no MRI or PET scan, he was using the fluoroscope and X-ray for the prostate implants and the pelvic implants. So that was the beginning of the image-assisted implantation era. Then we had ultrasound guidance for putting the various brachy needles on the catheters. This can be used in the various forms like transabdominal ultrasound, transrectal, transvaginal, and I'm a huge fan of using ultrasound. I'll tell you in the next slide that why I prefer ultrasound so much. But I mostly prefer transrectal for pelvic procedures, and for breast I just use the simple probe, which is used for transabdominal and the breast. At times I use transvaginal also when the tumor is very near to the or into the anal canal of the rectum, or into the urethra, or into the upper body vagina. So I use still transvaginal, the same probe I use for transvaginal, transrectal, and transabdominal as well. Some work done by Beth Erickson from University of Wisconsin using CT scan for implants. Then we have a dedicated MRI facility used for brachy implants in Howard University, Howard Medical School, and I'm lucky to witness that operation theater, which is a dedicated suite, and that's the only one in the world. It's called Amigo. We'll just discuss that in the next slide. Then we have the PET scan, which is being used for assisting implants. I'm using this at my field, although not very frequently, but some patients in the pelvic implants, because with PET scan, you don't have any artifacts. With CT scan, you have some artifacts, But with PET scan, it doesn't mind whether your needle is plastic or it is metallic, So with PET scan, you just need, it just picks up the uptake, FDG uptake, So it is simple. It doesn't have any artifacts due to the needles and the applicator. And it precisely tells you the actual viable tumor. So it's a new imaging modality being used. I don't know how far it is popular in other centers, but I'm using it in a couple of my in the pelvis, especially the pelvis. Then the imaging used for planning as well. This I think so everybody knows that CT scan is the commonest imaging modality used for the planning. Although now we have the systems based on MRI as well, and even the PET scan is also being used for planning the certain patients. So the imaging has revolutionized the brachytherapy, ranging from the implantation to the planning. This is exactly why I prefer ultrasound for brachy implants. It is a simple machine. It's not a very heavy or large machine. It's a simple portable machine which looks like a laptop to you. is easily available. Most departments, most centers will have ultrasound rather than the CT simulator or MR simulator. And it doesn't have a non-ionizing radiation. It is a non-ionizing, so there is no fear of exposure when you are doing the ultrasound in the operation theater for guiding implants. The best part which I like is that it gives a real-time image. No other model, like even if PACScan does not give a real-time image. CT scan, MRI, PACScan, they give you the still images. You just have to do a scan and then come out and then do your rectify implant. But with ultrasound, you can track, you can navigate your needle and the catheter during the procedure itself. So therefore, implantation is perfect with the ultrasound. Although image quality may not be very good, but still give a decent image quality to guide your implant in a better way. And cost is very minimal. The ultrasound cost is very minimal as compared to the CT scan of MRI. So all in all, it gives you everything which you need for guiding the breakage. This is just I'm showing a patient where the uterus was retrograde and our present almost put it in a wrong direction. As you can see, the second patient has a hyperactivated uterus, as you can see here, and our resident, the uterus too. These are the patients where ultrasound is very, very handy, very useful in this patient because you can put the probe into the rectum and you can see the uterus very well. You can see your applicator, you can see the bladder, and you can guide your placement of the tandem in the uterus very, very well. And although I have some work published in this area, but in my opinion, ultrasound is a great fit for the pelvic implant, especially the intracavity interstitial procedure. One of the patients I have treated, the patient who had a growth at the lower end vagina, I don't know whether you can see it, I can zoom it. Yes, now you can see. In this picture, you can see it, vaginal growth at the lower end, the posterior part, and then I put 3 just needles under the guidance of the transrectal ultrasound, by which I could avoid the rectal perfect because rectum is very close to this tumor. So if you perforate the rectum, then patient is going to have some complications. So ultrasound is very helpful in this sense. I'll show the image. In this image, you can see the various needles while I was doing the implant, and you can see the bladder here, so that you can see the bladder as well. This is the rectal wall, so you can see how distant your needles are from the your rectum or the anal canal. So it gives you the good anatomical image, so that you can cover the tumor, and at the same time you can avoid the injury to the normal structures like rectum or the bladder. It's the dosimetry of the same patient. Yeah, it's the dosimetry of the same patient. As you can see, the 3 catheters, that's the rectum. This is bladder is of course very far off, and I put some packing into the vagina. You can see the area which we covered. It is exactly what we wanted to cover. At the same time, very small area of the rectum is getting a dose, which is deliberate because the tumor was so close. I wanted to deliberately cover the part of rectum. Otherwise, it could have been further better. But this is what you get with the brachytherapy. If you do IMRT in this case, I'm sure your rectum is going to get quite a good dose, and so is the bladder as well. Therefore, with brachytherapy in small tumors, which are close to in the vicinity of the normal structure like rectum, which are very sensitive, then brachy has a big advantage that you can throw the dose to the desired area with the minimal doses to the OR, and at the same time you can avoid the injury with the help of the ultrasound. This exercising in the same patient, as you can see perfectly, the rectum is almost straight. This is the posterior wall of the rectum. The anterior wall is deliberately covered because the tumor is close to this. Blood is far off. So with this interstitial brachytherapy guided by the transrectal ultrasound, the implant is perfect, the dosimetry is perfect. So these are some of the experience I have shared with my colleagues and the literature as well, that the ultrasound is a great help, and with this you can do wonders as far as dosimetry is concerned. One more modality which I prefer to use, this is a Doppler ultrasound, which people use for diagnosing DVT or deep vein thrombosis. I use the Doppler mode for putting implant for the neck nodes, where your vessel is very close to the neck node, like the carotid vessels are very close by. So if you do not have any imaging assistance, then you can sometimes puncture a great vessel, and it can be disastrous. So people are afraid of using this, but I devised this modality for assisting the implant, and it is very, very beneficial. I'll tell you how this is. This was a patient who had a neck node hair, which was residual after the excision was 70 degree, and the surgeons said they can't operate because it's fixed, and there's a vessel just near to that, so therefore nobody even think of the putting up this implant. But under the ultrasound guidance, I put this implant in two planes. I'll show the picture. This is how I put the implant. This is a vessel. It's very close to the node. That's the tumor. And I put the catheter in two planes, avoiding the underlying vessel and still covering it, and then creating a dosimetry. And then I asked the patient to create dosimetry. If you do it well, then it looks fancy. People say that bracket is not fancy, but in my opinion, if you see with a careful eye, the bracket looks very, very fancy. In fact. Okay. Moving on to the next example. Yeah, this is again a patient which I just want to highlight that these are the due to the imaging you can do certain implants which looks difficult. Otherwise, there are very few people who can think that for lung metastasis you can do interstitial bracket, because they say if you put a needle in the thorax you can cause bleeding, you can cause pneumothorax or hemothorax. But with ultrasound the CT guidance, you can still put the catheter or a needle in the right place, avoiding the further energy. As you can see here, the needle has been put into the center of the lesion, perfectly due to ultrasound, the CT scan image, and you can still cover it very well. Similarly, liver metastasis, nobody is using the interstitial brachy. People use SBRT, they prefer SBRT. In my opinion, it doesn't require any cost, and you can cover the lesion very, very well. And at the same time, the central part gets a bonus extra dosing, which you can't get with SBRT. I love inhomogeneity in interstitial brachytherapy. At the same time, people don't like inhomogeneity in the SBRT and IMRT treatment. This is something which is a class of the philosophy. Another imaging is now frequently used. MRI is being used for MR guided intracavitary brachytherapy. It's being used for prostate also nowadays. So the best part with MRI is that you can see the tumor very well, which you can't see the CT scan. The CT scan cannot give you the good image stuff in the pelvis. So now you can see here, MRI you can see the tumor very well, and therefore you can implant in a better way, and you can treat in a better way if you know the tumor anatomy on the MRI imaging. The next is the PET scan. As I told you, I'm using a PET scan also for brachytherapy. This is a patient who had a lung metastasis, and we did a PET scan. And as you can see, there is a hot area here, and therefore we implanted. Oh, by the way, this work has been already published in 2011. Although not a large series, it's a small series of like 12 patients, which is published. It was a clinical work. And as you see, I put the needle under the CT guidance here, very precisely in the same area, and also a little bit far beyond the lesion so that you can have a better dosimetry. And this is the PET scan I'm using for the NUPIT or the perineal template brachytherapy, because in perineal template you're using the stainless steel needles, which create a lot of artifacts, and you can't see any tumor if you have 20 steel needles into the pelvis. So you can't see any tumor on the CT scan. Now I am doing the both pattern CT, and with PET scan you don't have the artifact on the image. It just takes the FDG, and as you can see here, sometimes it can help you. Like in this case, there was an uptake here at the edge of the implant. So by this PET scan, I could know that my implant is not covering it well. So therefore, I optimized my dosimetry and covered it well. Had I not done the PET scan, I could have probably missed and patient would have been recurrent. Similarly, in some patients, it is very useful, although not in every patient PET scan is useful, but yes, in some patients, it is very, very useful. It can tell you the actual viable tumor, and you can reshape your dosimetry. You can implant it better if you had the PET scan in this patient. And I do it, I first implant the patient, and then I take the patient for the PET scan. And then I create the dosimetry, keeping in mind the FDG uptake, and try to cover that area. So PET scan is also being used. I won't recommend for every patient, but yes, in some patients stuffing the pelvis, where you are using the steel needles, there it is very, very useful. Another imaging device which is now coming to the picture, and we are going to acquire very soon at our institute. This is called a mobile CT scan, which you can transport it to the operation theater, and you can use during implant. This is what I was talking. That the portable CT scan can be transported to operating room, and sometimes when you don't have any imaging modality, like ultrasound may not be great using thoracic tumors. So this can help you in putting the implant during the operation theater. That you can do a CT scan during the operation theater, and you can see where your tumor and where the other normal structures, and accordingly you can direct the needle or the catheter covering the tumor well, and you implant it in this way is going to be perfect implant, and then in fact the same area can be used for planning as well, So this is, I think, is going to further refine the brachy work. This is one suite I was talking about. This is called Anico suite. This is called Advanced Multimodality Image Guided Operating Room. This is available in Harvard Medical School. As you can see, this is the operation theater, and adjoining rooms, one has the MRI and one side has the PET scan. And with the railroad technique, you can transfer the patient, you can sit the patient with the railroad system from operating suite to the MRI. You can quickly do the MRI, and you can know whether you are in the right area, you are putting implant in the right area or not. Similarly, you can do the PET scan also if you want, and with the help of the PET scan, you can further refine your implant there in the operation itself. Although it's an expensive facility, but yes, it is very useful. There's a couple of work has been published from the Harvard Medical School, especially the pelvic tumors using the implant. Now, advancement in planning software. Well, this is not, since I'm a clinician, this is not my field, but yes, there is no doubt the planning software have totally revolutionized the brachytherapy treatment, because you can desire whatever shape you want with the planning system. Even though I tell my that even if you commit some error in putting implant in the operation theater, the planning system sometimes can take care of that. And this is how it helps us in arriving still good dosimetry and going ahead with the treatment. Previously, when we didn't have digital software, we used to improve implants by taking it out and then re-implanting and taking the patient to operation again and making it quite complex. So nowadays it's quite easy, and that's how we learn. So planning software are very important for brachy treatment. I'm just showing an example that how the treatment planning system I just showed before as well, that it's only because of the planning software that I could still cover it well, although the implant was not a good implant. As per my standard, as you can see, there is one needle here and there is one needle here. There is quite a bit of gap, and then it is not covering the entire tumor very well because of you have a rib here and you have a rib here. So due to these physical constraints, you cannot sometimes achieve ideal implant, but SDR optimization software will still help you in achieving the good dosimetry and still avoiding the dose to the normal tissues. This work also has been published in Journal of Contemporary Brachytherapy in 2013, liver metastasis using the brachytherapy. So if somebody is interested, you can do that. The other advancement is the intraoperative brachytherapy. I don't know why people don't use it, and it's a very effective treatment. It has a very good potential that you are delivering the radiation treatment in the operation theatre itself. When the surgeon has opened up the operating area, you can see with your naked eyes that where the tumor bearing zone is. You can implant there and then, which is very easy because your eyes are very, they can see the tumor bed. You can palpate the tumor bed with your finger, and you can implant in the operating area as well and deliver a dose even before the surgery is complete. This is one of the examples of our patients where patient had a recurrent CA cervix and further surgery was not possible as a routine standard. What we did that we did surgery and the margins are closed on the lateral pelvic wall. That's the reason people don't go for surgery, because they know the margins are going to be positive. The tumor is very close to the lateral wall. What we do, we resect the tumor as much as possible, and the rest of the area was covered by putting applicator here and connected to the brachy machine. And the best part is that we could pack the entire pelvic contents up into the pelvis. As you can see, there's a gauze piece here, and due to this, all the other contents like the colon and the bladder have been pushed up. And now we have only the tumor bag. Therefore, there is no normal tissue here except the tumor bag. So it is very effective. You are treating only the tumor bag directly under this applicator. So this is one advancement which I think surgeons have to exploit it. And maybe it's a responsibility of not only the radiation but the future role that they should prescribe the surgical team use this. They may not be aware of it, but once you tell them, they may like to use this because it's a very handy facility, especially with recurrent tumors in the pelvis. This is one advancement I thought I'll just show you. This is called robotic brachytherapy. There's some work going on in some of the European countries that uses a robot for putting the implant, which just like a robotic surgery. And it has the same arm like a surgical arm. It's just like that one of the patients of liver metastasis where the software into the CT simulator and that will guide you that at what angle, at what depth your tumor is, and it will just place needle there and then with the help of this robot. It will just place needle there and then for you. So it further eases out the implant for the doctor, that you get the guidance by the imaging, and then the robot which will put the needle for you in the right place. So, but of course, it's a very at a premium stage. Some work is going on in Europe, especially in Holland, about this robotic brake therapy. Coming to the clinical uses, I think this is the last question. I think there are multiple areas where brachytherapy is useful. I will not go into details of all. I'll just pick 3 or 4 quickly that how the brachytherapy has helped the patients in achieving a good local control and survival. And since there are common themes, I'll just talk about the common themes. The cervical cancer is very common in the Asian countries and the developing countries. Breast cancer is common in both developing and developed countries. So I'll cover a little bit of breast cancer as well. Hereditary cancer, again, very common cancer, especially in India. Prostate cancer is, of course, very well, very frequent in developed countries, but of late there is a surge into the countries like India and the developing countries. So I'll just quickly score this for. This is regarding cervix. People tried and used IMRT for cervix in place of the intracranial brachytherapy, and these are the results in front of you. This is a publication from the Harvard Medical School again in the Red Journal somewhere in 2013, and then they compared that the patients who were treated with intracranial brachytherapy and patients who were treated without the intracranial brachytherapy, and what they could see that the survival is far better using the brachytherapy, and it was quite inferior when you omit brachytherapy. So therefore, they are not omit the brachytherapy from the carcinoma cervix treatment. This is very, very important. Another publication from the University of Pittsburgh, and this is a study-based analysis. It was a database analysis. What they realized that the use of intracranial brachytherapy declined from 2009 onwards because there was a surge in the SBRT and IMRT. And what they realized that there was an increase in the use of SBRT and IMRT post 2009 for cervix in place of brachytherapy. So there was a clear hype and enthusiasm for the use of SBRT and IMRT in place of intracavitary brachytherapy. And people were surprised to see the results. If you see, the patients treated with brachytherapy had a far better survival as from the patients who were treated by the SBRT and IMRT. The message is very clear. If you omit brachytherapy in carcinoma cervix, you're going to compromise the survival, and that is probably disastrous. It's a medical crime if you treat a carcinoma cervix without the brachytherapy. It's very, very clear. There are multiple publications suggesting and recommending the use of intracavitary brachytherapy, and do not replace brachy with SBRT or IMRT. Another important landmark publication in the prostate cancer. This is called ASCENT trial, where the patients were treated by, in one arm, they were treated by the IMRT with the use with the dose of 78 gray to the prostate, and in this they used brachy for the boost, a field brachy for the boost, and you can see the dose was same in both the arms, but with the use of brachy, the dose could be escalated to 115 gray, as I told you. So that means you can escalate the dose to a very high level with the use of the field brachy. While in the IMRT or the SME treatment, the dose, maximum dose which can be achieved is like 78 to 80 gray. Therefore, in this trial, there is a clear advantage. I'll just show the results. The patients who were treated by brachytherapy, field brachy boost, they had a far better survival even at 10 years. And the patients who were treated by only the EBRT escalated dose like 78 gray and 80 gray, their survival is inferior. So therefore, there is in prostate, it's a clear data at 10 years follow-up data that if you do brachy boost for intermediate and high-risk patients, then the results are going to be better as compared to the IMRT. Another patient of the breast patients, which I have treated, it's difficult to identify whether the patient has been treated with radiation. This patient has, of course, treated by the post-surgery radiation treatment. I don't know whether you can identify by what modality was treated, whether it was IMRT or it was electron, it was brachytherapy, but if you carefully, this patient treated by the brachytherapy, you can see the marks here. I did a brachy implant in this patient with treatment with APBI, and you can hardly see anything discoloration or pigmentation or any ulceration on the skin. Unlike in extreme treatment, you have some skin changes. All you can see is only the skin marks or these needle marks, which disappear within like 3 to to 6 months, and you have very good cosmesis and very good local control with the brachytherapy in the cervix, especially the interstitial brachytherapy. I may not go into details, but this is one publication I want to cite. This is the JCSM trial using the interstitial brachy, purely interstitial brachy based APBI. They did not use IMRT or 3D CRT for APBI. They used only multi-catheter brachytherapy, and you can see the results. This was a trial having almost 1,328 patients. Both arms, one was APBI, another was whole breast, and the results were both with the brachy-based APBI and the whole breast. The point is that if you can use brachytherapy for covering your lumpectomy area, why treat the whole breast? And in this case, brachytherapy gives a very good distribution and giving it a very good local control and the best cosmesis and with the less toxicity under the skin and the adjoining. So in boost, in brachy can use both for boost and for APBI in case of breast. It's a very effective. I've been using it very frequently for breast women. In head and neck, people think that in head and neck the brachytherapy is dying or it is declining. Yes, to some extent, it's right that it's declining, but the efficiency is not declining. If you still use brachy in head and neck cancer, you get a better result. So in a way, declining brachy in head and neck doesn't mean the efficacy or its clinical potential is declining. The clinical potential is still the same in head and neck cancers. This is one article published in Brachytherapy in 2016 where they studied the decay of brachytherapy, but they realized that patients who were treated by combination of EBRT and brachy, they had a better survival, and the patients who were treated by EBRT alone, they had an inferior survival. This is just to show that some people say that that brachy is not very popular, but if you see the growth of the SCR machine in India, I can show the next image. You can see the growth of the SCR machine is going up. It was in 2011, it was 26, now it could have gone far this. So I don't know on what basis people say that SDR brachytherapy is not popular. It's not a popular treatment. If you see the growth of the machines, it looks very popular now. Anyway, finally to conclude, brachytherapy is an excellent therapeutic modality. It is minimally invasive. It requires simple skills and simple gadgets to practice. It does not compete with the IMRT. It in fact complements the IMRT. You can combine both IMRT and brachy for the boost and giving the best results. We should exploit the benefit of brachytherapy only by using it. There is no point just talking and discussing brachytherapy and not doing it. I know in the current era there is a fierce competition between the VMAX, Tomo, Proton, MR-Linac, and so on. But I tell you, the brachy class of none of these technologies come here to the brachytherapy. So brachytherapy is the mother of all control treatments. One should remember that. Thank you very much, then, and long live brachytherapy.